Hi everyone, welcome to this video. In this clip, we get to talk with Dr. Elizabeth Hartwig. Thank you for being here.
Yay.
So happy that you're joining me. And we're going to talk about solution-focused play therapy. And Dr. Hartwig is going to give us a nice intro into this so we better understand, what this type of play therapy is and how you can learn more about it. So maybe we could just jump right in there.
Yeah.
Dr. Hartwig, how would you describe solution-focused play therapy? Type of play therapy is this?
Yeah. Well, basically it's a strengths-based approach to play therapy. So what we believe is really that like children are competent and they actually have the abilities to work toward the goal that they've set. And so when we're working with children, we really want to start by like developing a goal with children and their caregivers or parents. And then kind of like, how do we take these small steps toward working toward that goal? And we really have a lot of emphasis on like past successes, exceptions to the problem or presenting issue, um, individual strengths that the child has, strengths that the family has, resources that the family has. And it really is a systemic model. And so there's just a lot of emphasis on like working with children and their families. So kind of like partnering with the caregivers and even siblings and things like that to help children like reach their goals. So it's kind
I
of in
think
a
that
nutshell what it's all about.
yeah, that was a great in a nutshell. Two things that you said that I think really spoke to me like immediately was how you really purposefully take a look at strengths
Mm-hmm.
and try to work from the strengths-based approach.
Right.
I don't think that that is necessarily always a central focus in
Mm-hmm.
some theories and approaches. And I love that because I
Yeah.
think that is so important. It gets missed sometimes.
Yeah. I think that, as a like I work with, adults and couples as well and things. And, when you're working with clients, there can be so much of a focus on the problem. Like when I work with couples and they want to come in and talk about like the problem over and over again. And I think children hear that a lot. It's kind of like when they're doing something wrong or their behavior is not what people expect, there's this emphasis on the misbehavior and what they're not doing right. And I think that when we can focus more on kind of like, well, let's look at like when things are going well, what is going well, and how can we do more of that and not have such an emphasis on the not going well part. And not that, I mean, you definitely can talk about the presenting issue and what's going on. It's very important to know like what are we working with here.
Right.
But then how can we take some steps forward? How can we move forward with that rather than kind of continually going back to the issue? And so I mean, I look at people and families as people who have strengths and resources. I mean, that is naturally how I look at people. And so like it just really comes naturally to me to be able to like work with the child in play therapy and seeing them choosing different toys and kind of looking at how they're going at seeing the world and kind of working toward whatever their clinical goal is. And I think sometimes families come in feeling, exhausted. It's kind of like they've tried all these things that maybe have worked a little or maybe haven't worked. And they're like, okay, now I need somebody else's help. And I love being a part of really looking at like partnering with caregivers to work with the child. Like I don't see solution focus as just like only working with the child and the family's kind of out there in the waiting room, not really involved. I really see it as a partnership where we're all working together. And so it could be that we're having like some family play therapy sessions. It could be that we do some parent child sessions. or really just doing some frequent like caregiver consultations and really checking in with the caregivers on like what's working and things like that. So
That's great. That was the other thing you said that really jumped out to me was the involvement of the family, the
mhm,
parents, possibly siblings, whoever's making up this family, and this emphasis on, you know, we care about them and what's going on with them and that part of the child. And so they may be full on doing all the therapy with you and the child or consultations, but this emphasis on this idea of partnering with them. I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome in play therapy, and something that I've seen, you know, isn't quite there in a lot of other child therapies,
mhm.
and so that jumped out at me too when you mentioned that in solution focus, that the family is a part, and that's an important part that you look at.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it is, we really see solution focus as a systemic approach. I mean, I got my master's in a marriage and family therapy program. And so I really learned primarily about the systemic approaches. And so not just working with the child and their family, but also looking at who might be some other important people that can help the child reach their goals. And so,
Right.
reaching out to teachers and school counselors and doctors and band directors, just, anybody else who maybe could be a part of helping the child be successful is important. So, yeah.
That's great. So obviously we're talking about working with kids. So population wise,
Mhm.
solution focused play therapy, primarily would the population be children, any certain ages, and any certain diagnosis or issue? Who
Yeah.
would be sort of the recipient of this approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, I think I first want to start out by saying that there's just been a ton of research done on solution focused therapy with children. And there's hopefully Becky Taylor and I are going to be coming out with an article soon that has like a really good table that presents just all the different research that's been done. There's been more than 140 randomized controlled trials to
Oh,
look
great.
at like, is this really an effective approach? So I think that's something that's important to look at first, is like just what research has actually been done. I mean, I can sit here and tell you it's been effective with the clients I've worked with, but I think we really have to look at, is this an evidence-based approach? The issues that have been researched with solution focus are a lot of behavior issues, whether it's like at home or at school. So different internalizing or externalizing behaviors, ADHD, social skills, anger issues, aggressiveness. It's even been researched with autism, which I know is an area that you're
Mhm.
really interested in. I actually did a study back in like 2014, 2015, which involved therapy dogs, which is another passion of mine. And I used a solution focused curriculum. And so what's great about the study is that it actually showed significant changes both in like working with therapy dogs and in solution focus. And so the areas that I studied where it showed a significant change was in anxiety, depression, and disruptive behavior.
Well,
So
that's
those were
awesome.
three areas. Yeah. So and I'm really looking forward to doing some more research specifically on solution focused play therapy with young children. That's an area where we really need to have more studies. There have been some studies, but really doing some more research on that so that, we can just demonstrate the change in those younger kiddos.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned the research that's out there so people can understand that this is something that is based in, psychological counseling theory and research,
Right, right.
like all play therapy theories and approaches.
There
We say
should.
that all the time.
Right, but it's important. And I think another thing that I really appreciate about this approach is that there's been a lot of research with different cultures and different populations. And I mean, really like in different countries all over the world. It's really an affirmative approach because we're really looking to ask the client and the family, like, what are you wanting to change? And we really want to value your culture and like what you're bringing to the therapy room. And so
Right.
there's just this emphasis on, affirming different cultures and people. There's a whole book on solution focused therapy with the LGBTQ population. So I really like, that's something I think that's so important now, is that we really
Yeah.
make sure that the approaches we're using really fit for the client and
Yeah.
not just like, this is the way I like to do therapy.
Right. Exactly. I love that. I'm glad you mentioned that. So if somebody's watching and they're thinking, I like what I'm hearing here, how can somebody go get more information about this approach? How can they get more info? How can they get more training?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Well, so I wrote a book called Solution Focused Play Therapy. So I'm definitely, that's a great resource. My goal with the book was to kind of say like, okay, if you don't know anything about solution focused play therapy, I'm going to take you from the first phone call from a caregiver all the way to the final session of like, this is exactly how to do this approach. And I include forms in there that you can use in your practice and interventions that you can do with kids. And it really talks about like what solution focus looks like with young children and how it looks really more non-directive with young children.
Right.
And then how as kids get older and it's more developmentally appropriate to add in more directive aspects, then you can add in those more directive interventions and techniques and things. Becky Taylor, or Elizabeth Rebecca Taylor, wrote an awesome book called Solution Focused Therapy with Children and Adolescents. And that is another great resource. She just shares so many different ways of using all the different techniques with solution focused play therapy, like the miracle question and scaling and all the different resources that you can use, like using, puppets and sand tray and expressive arts and things like that. So I really loved her book as well. And Becky and I are excited. We're going to be presenting at the Texas Association for Play Therapy this year. And then we're super excited about this. We are presenting at the American Counseling Association Conference in April.
Oh, excellent.
So, yeah. So if anybody's going to be out at that conference, we'll be there. Then I am going to be doing a solution focused play therapy immersive online training for just anybody that really wants to dig into learning this approach, like really wanting to learn and practice skills. And so even though it's online, we are going to have some synchronous part of the training where we'll interact and actually practice skills together. And then there will be some other parts where they can kind of like I'll teach skills and then they can like record and demonstrate their skills, and then kind of submit those recordings. So my goal is to really help people from all over be able to learn about this approach with children. So, and that'll be available. I have a private practice and training center called Positive Counseling.
Okay.
So it brings in the therapy dog deal, so Positive Counseling. And so, yeah, if people want to check out www.positivecounseling.com, I'll have some training resources there too.
That's great. That online intensive sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, good. We'll have all those resources and links here at the bottom of the screen so people can go learn more, maybe sign up for some trainings, or definitely purchase the book. I have the book, even though we were just talking before, I can't find it in my horrible mess of a library.
It's on your nightstand right by your bed, I'm sure. You were like reading it.
Or it's in my work office. I mean, my books
Probably.
are so strung out. It's terrible. But I have it, and it is a good book. And so that's a great place for people to start as well. Well, I really appreciate you taking your time and sharing this with us. I think it's important that people understand this play therapy approach is out there and know a little bit more about what it is and how it works.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you having me, and just I think this is awesome what you're doing. And I love talking about this and helping people learn. I mean, solution focus is used a lot in schools. And I think there's so many play therapists out there that maybe haven't found quite the right thing. And if what I'm talking about sounds like a fit for them, like I love that you might be exposing some people that this could really fit for them. So thank you for
Absolutely.
doing this.
Absolutely. I love it. And thank you. You take care.
All
And
right,
thank
you
you
too.
guys for watching. Come back and watch some more videos and check out all of them about all our different play therapy theories and approaches. Bye.
Yay. Bye.